Hi there, my name is Bethany Barnard and I'm an independent demonstrator with Stampin' Up! And I've been working on some projects using the Window Wishes bundle, which you can find on page 36 of our July to December mini catalog for the year 2022. I really love this bundle and its versatility, and I go into some detail about why that's so on the film with the project number 2, and this is project number 5 that we're working on today. But I did want to remind you that in addition to dies here that coordinate with the stamps, there's also these extra dies for the window, which is very versatile throughout the year, and it's also got the houses and the cars and the trees, so it does make it a set that can be used throughout the year. So I would recommend that you look at that project number 2 to see why I consider it to be one of the best bundles that we have in the catalog. And of course, when you buy the bundle, you're saving 10% on both the stamp set and also the dies. Okay, the card we're going to make today is basically a Z-fold card, but this piece has been made into look like a staircase, and we have a room here set up for Christmas with a window looking out. Now, I've used almost all product from this bundle alone, and cardstock, of course, but I did use, in order to get this tree, this is part of the Twinkling Lights dies, and I used it to cut out my tree that was just such a perfect size for this half of the room. But I've made this card with chairs, with animals. You can do a number of things, and many of us already have a stamp for a tree or a die for a tree, and so you can use whatever you want there, or you can go ahead and get those Twinkling Lights dies. I love this die and how the color shows through from behind, and we'll take you through that when we work on that. I'm going to show you all of the pieces that we use in order to make this and how I cut them so that you can do the same. So what we have here is your basic Z-fold. So we started out with a card base that was 11 inches by 4 1/4, and then I scored it 2 3/4 and 5 1/2 inches. So that's our card base, which is our typical Z-fold. And then I have DSP. Now this DSP also comes from the He's the Man suite, which you can find on page 79 in our annual catalog. And you'll see if I turn this over that there's all these cars and motorcycles on it. This is great paper for masculine cards, but I liked this side for just sort of a neutral wallpapery background for my room scene. And so I have this one cut at 4 inches by 5 1/4, and that will go right here. And then I have this one cut at 2 1/2 by 4 and another one at 2 1/2 by 4. And that's where we will put those pieces. So you'll want to have those cut. This is where I took my twinkling dies, and I will be cutting off the star from the green one and placing it over, and you'll see how that Mango Melody comes up through. I've used the shaded spruce cardstock and the Mango Melody to put together this tree. And then I use the shaded spruce to stamp my swag as well as my wreath. And we're going to be cutting up this swag to put it on the banister and above the window. And then we've used the die to cut the window, plus the inside of the window. And then there's 4 other smaller pieces that are to the right of me here that would go in here, but I'm not going to move them until we get ready to stamp those up. But they're just part of the whole die cut of the window from this bundle. I'm going to put that to the side. I also die cut 2 bows, one for the banister swag and one for the wreath. And then we have 7 of these pieces to the staircase, and they're cut at 2 1/2 inches by 1/4 inch. And I just had a 2 1/2 inch piece of cardstock, and I just kept moving it 1/4 of an inch to get them that small. It doesn't really matter how small or how wide they are, but you do want them to be consistent in size. And then this one is about 4 inches by 1/2 inch, and it's going to be the actual banister part that you hold on to, and you know, we'll put it on the card like this and cut it up, and you'll see that as we put the card together. All right, the last piece that you need for this card is a strip that is 11 inches by 1.5 inches. Again, scored at 2 3/4 and 5 1/2. But then we're going to take this to our trimmer, because what you want to have in order to make your staircase is this sort of angle coming down here. So what we're going to do is we're going to start at 3/4 of an inch from the end that has this first score, and we're going to cut off 3/4 of an inch. So half of 1.5 inches is 3/4 of an inch. So we'll cut off 3/4 of an inch, and it will leave 3/4 of an inch until we get to that halfway fold score mark, and then we're going to angle it up to the 1.5 inches, and I'm going to show you that, demonstrate that right now, so you understand what that process is. So here's my trimmer, and I'm putting, here's my score mark, my first score mark and my second score mark, and so I'm going to line this up to where I'm on the 3/4 inch line here. And I am going to, in fact, I prefer to start where I have my score mark, because that way when I'm pushing the cutter up like this, I'm also pushing the paper up so it doesn't move. Okay, so that's a little tip for you there. Okay, so now, just to make it easier to put in my trimmer, I'm going to go ahead and cut this piece off. Okay, and now our objective is to angle this right to that corner. So now I am just going to put, I want this whole full piece here. Let's make sure that you're seeing this on the camera. So I need to get right where we finished cutting here into the gully where the cutting happens, close this, I'm gonna have to move this down because this end here is sticking out so much that I can't shut the cutter. So hopefully well, this is now 2 times that I can show you exactly what I'm doing. So I have this corner is in the gully where the blade goes, and this edge is also in the same place. And now, while holding this down, I'm gonna pull this down again. And there you have it. See, it's made that slope that we want for our staircase. So I hope that made sense as I took you through that. Okay. And I did use, for both the card base and for the fold out piece in front, this piece here, I did use our thick basic white. Okay, so I'm going to move this over here, and I'm going to get started by first putting the wallpaper on. So here we go. And you're going to start by putting the 2.5 by 4 inch pieces here, and the 4 inches by 5.5 there. I feel like I have just passed the point of no return, where I've started to not ink up, but glue pieces down on this card. And so if I make a mistake in the video at this point, I think I'll just keep going. So now's a good time to hold your breath and see if I make it through here. Okay, 1. I like to use this fat end of the mono liquid glue because it sort of flattens the glue at the same time, and I think it spreads it out and keeps you from using too much or making too much of a mess. So I use, and you'll see that I use both ends of my glue, and I think they serve different purposes. This is a brand new glue that I opened right before the video. I don't know if anybody else out there is like me, where I shake them out, want to use every last drop. In fact, right to the right of me here, I probably have 5 almost empty glue bottles, but I can't bring myself to throw them away in case there's just a little bit more in there. But by the same token, when I open up a brand new package of glue, it's so exciting, it's so clean, it's so fresh, and there's just something nice about a brand new bottle. Okay, we're going to go ahead. The next thing I want to work on is that window here, because that can be tricky. So I want to go ahead, and this is where I'm going to definitely use the other side of my liquid glue. But I did want to tell you that some of the other options, and I have done it, I generally just forget. But if you buy some of our adhesive sheets, you can put them on the back of, this is out of our foil paper. And if you put the adhesive sheet on the back of the foil before you run it through and die cut it, then you get to just peel off the plastic and you have adhesive already on here. It's the best way for these thin dies to be glued together, and look at how much I just squeezed out of that. If this is off camera, it's just because I want to make sure that glue doesn't go in the center of my grid sheet here, because as I said, this was a brand new bottle and that really came out fast. I'm sure you can all relate to the problems of these intricate dies and getting glue on them and not making a mess. The good thing about the window, though, is if the glue goes in toward the center of the window, it's okay, because we are actually gonna fill that in with the white when the time comes. So I'm putting this down, and you want to make sure it's all the way to the left. You don't want it, I hope I don't want it right up against, yeah, no, that's good. Okay, so that's in there. And then I am gonna go ahead and stamp my little snowflakes on the windows. So can you see these tiny pieces of window that come out with the die? But it wouldn't look right if there wasn't snow in them too. And so this will be the piece that goes in there. Now I put them on here just so that hopefully you could see them better, but I'm gonna stamp them on my grid paper because I don't want to get snowflakes on my living room wall. Okay, I didn't go through the ink colors that we're using today, but we are using the Balmy Blue, Shaded Spruce, Real Red, Soft Suede, Smoky Slate, and Blushing Bride. And the Balmy Blue is what we're using for snowflakes, and there is a little snowflake stamp that does come with this set. And I'm just gonna, this is really only gonna, you know, I shouldn't stamp, I'm gonna stamp these first. I designed this card in July for my Christmas in July event, and here it is September, and I'm finally putting together a video of it. I've been gone most of the month of August, and so I'm actually remembering how I even put this card together, and I'm realizing before I do all the snow, I do want to go ahead and stamp the rest of the scene in here. because I don't want snow. It wouldn't really matter, I suppose. Not being an artist, I don't really remember how that goes for foreground and background or whatever, but just to keep it safe, I'm going to go ahead and stamp and then add my snow. So I really like this Blushing Bride pink for houses, partly because they just kind of remind me of, I don't know, a sweet little village or something. That there's just something about that color. But the other reason is I think this Blushing Bride has kind of a misty look, almost as if there was some snow in the background. So that's the only thing you need the Blushing Bride for, is the house. So if you want your house a different color, then you won't need that Blushing Bride. And I've decided to go with the Smoky Slate for the roof. So that comes into two different parts, which is fun because you can do up the different colors. And that's the only reason I use the Smoky Slate. And now I'm going to use the soft suede for my big tree that I think is kind of in the forefront here. There we go. And then finally, I have a pair of conifer trees, evergreens, that I'm gonna stamp in the shaded spruce, just because that's the color of some of the cardstock and the color of the wreath and swag that we have in here as well. Now, I think I can get both of these on here. There we go. So now that we have the picture of our neighbor through the window here, I feel better about adding the snow. So I'm going to come back to my balmy blue, and that's the only time we use the balmy blue is for our snow. And I'm just going to make sure that we get a good picture of this snowfall coming down. I was born and raised in New England, up there in Rhode Island, and I really miss the snowy winter times. I live in Florida now, so you can imagine I don't see much of that now. All right, so we're going to go ahead and put the window pieces in now. So I'm going to just go ahead and put a little glue in all of these spots. You don't need a lot because this glue is so good. It is my go-to glue. You've probably heard me say that on every project I've done so far. I do have all the other glues and they all serve a purpose, and there's times that I do use them and prefer them. But more often than not, I am about the liquid glue. Here's my Take Your Pick tool, which I love for a project just like this. Gotta make sure I'm stamped the right side of that, and I did. And this one goes here. There we go. Which I love that. I love the way it just follows through with that snow coming down here. Now we're going to be covering that up with a swag later on, and I know that the reason why my placement is so high up here is because I really want to see that snow coming down there. All right, so we can also go ahead and put our wreath up here. Now you could use dimensionals if you want. The only reason why I decide not to use dimensionals on a card like this is because of the thickness, the end thickness. It's already folded and has like a double thickness there. So I don't like to add more to it at that point. But I'm going to put this right here on the center, right to left, and about 2/3 of the way up. And then we're going to put, of course, a bow on our wreath, right? You know, there's always this question, does the bow go at the top or the bottom? I put it on the top here, but I'm sort of interested maybe in putting it on the bottom on this card. I always change up my cards a little bit when I do this. I'm not really sure why I have that compulsion to make them a little different. Maybe so that I can see them side by side and decide which way I like them best. But anyway, once again, this would have benefited from me putting on our adhesive sheets, which I have. It's not like I don't have it, but I did not think of it, and I'd already cut out the pieces. Maybe it's because it's still a newer product for us. But that's really, oh, we can put the swag up there, but I'm going to do that later. So at this point, I'm going to close this up, and we're going to start working on the staircase. So I'm going to put this, there's not much to see there, so I'm going to put it underneath here. And I'm going to grab this, and I'm going to do where I already put in the Merry Wishes for Lots of Joy at Christmas. I'm going to go ahead and put that on here, because if I make a mistake, I do have a spare one to my left that I can use. And if you're wondering about where you might sign this card, because it's a white base, you can always sign the card on the back. There we go. All right. So, Merry Wishes for Lots of Joy at Christmas. This is actually 2 stamps that I've put together for one big verse there. Okay, and since that worked, we're going to be okay. Now, what you want to do here is we are just going to, and this is a good way to use our grid paper, by the way. So you're going to take one end of each of these 7 spindles. Is that what we'd call them? And we're going to about halfway down, maybe a little bit more than halfway down, we're going to do the 2 end pieces first. Whoops, that's the banister. We don't want to do that. Okay, and you can see that I've put about 1/2 inch of glue on here, and I'm taking it down about 1/2 inch from this mark here. So this, to me, and I just eyeball this, that's about halfway. I'm going to go a little bit more. And if you want to keep it straight, use your grid paper, use those lines on your grid paper, and then follow it right up the line. Okay, so that's going to be my first and my last. So now I'm going to take one, and again, I pretty much just eyeball it, but I'm going to put it in about the center. And it's funny because this darker black line looks like it's right about in the center. So I'm going to just cover that up and go straight up the middle. There we go. And again, you want to bring this down about 1/2 inch. That seems good. And now you're just going to be sticking 2 pieces in between. So you're going to want them pretty much equidistant between them both. Don't worry about the angle here yet. We'll get to that. But that looks about equidistant. So I'm going to do one at a time. And glue that in. Again, though, I do recommend that you make sure it's going up straight by using your grid paper to follow the lines on your grid paper. And then this one will go right in between. So you can see I just eyeball this. Some of you might like exact measurements, but I don't know, I feel like when I do that, I don't know, it slows down the process, or I'm not really sure. But I hope that that was clear enough about how you can get this done. So I didn't stick, see, I'm doing it already. I didn't put my other one in here. I got a little wiggle room with this. There we go. I'm gonna move it a little bit to the left. Now, again, don't worry about the top bit because we're gonna be cutting that off anyway. You just wanna make sure that the spacing is fairly even. Keep in mind that other people are not gonna be like you, looking at the card to see how well you've spaced your spindles. I think that's what they're called. Okay, here we go. So that's all 7 of mine on here. And now here's how you use your grid paper to line that up, and we're going to make this banister go on straight. And the way we're going to do that is we want this angle to be we're lining that up now on our grid paper. So I hope that makes sense. So I have this is right onto this line here. So I know that's straight. So if I put this banister on right at this same line, then I know that this is going to be parallel to this slope, which makes sense, okay? So I might have made this a little bit longer, but it's gonna work. I'm gonna be okay with it. So what I wanna do, I hope that makes sense, right? This piece goes on the straight. You don't worry about what's happening to this part. You just make sure that this part of the slope is straight on your grid. And then, you know what I'm gonna do? I am going to put this 1 square above where I want my glue. And that way, I'll know right where to put the glue on each of my, I don't know, I keep calling them a spindle. Are they called spindles? I'm not sure. Okay, so I just put a little dot of glue on each one. I'm just going to remind you this glue is so good that it will most likely hold. And then I'm gonna, again, make sure that you're following that line. So I'm gonna have to move this up so that I'm following the line here. Okay, and then we'll pull that up, and then you're going to turn it over, and this is where, well, you don't have to turn it over. I think it's better to do it this way. This is where you're going to trim it all. There you go. Now, when I do this, I like to then angle this banister just a little bit here at the end. There we go. And so now we've got all of our pieces on that part. So now we're ready to take out the card base that we've done already and glue some of these pieces on. So you're going to see that when we glue this on, we have 1, 2, 3, 4. This one's a little bit questionable. I would say that's too close to where this folds, so I'm only going to worry about gluing the back of the first 4 spindles to get this on. So I'm going to go right up the middle here because you know this is going to squirt out, and that will be enough to hold. Ooh, somebody stop me. Okay, I think we're okay. And then you're only going to want to go up this much too because the rest is going to hang over. But this is all going to go right on the front of that card on that first 2 3/4. Okay. And you're going to want to bring this right to the edge of the card here. and this right to the edge of your card here. That looks good. And down, and then we just want to check the glue here. That looks good. Doesn't look like I went too far over, so that's good. And now we're just going to glue this piece here that's 3/4 of an inch by 2 3/4 of an inch, and we're going to have it meet all the way to the end of this, and it will just shut like that. Okay, so you only need to put the glue on the back side of this one part. I know some people have really been waiting to have me take them through how to do this staircase. This is how I do it. I've seen other staircases out there. They may be better. That's just the way I taught myself to do them for all of my staircase cards. I do like to make a staircase card every year. Okay, so now that looks like a pretty empty room right now. Would you agree? All right, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna go ahead and work on our tree. And you can always embellish your tree a little bit more too. But so here is the shaded spruce piece, and here is the mango melody. And so we just really want to take this part down. So I just cut off the star at the top because we want that to show up as the star at the top. And you can use Wink of Stella on the whole tree or just the star if you want to make that a little bit more festive. But I just glue this on again with my trusty Tombow multi-purpose liquid glue. I love the way they've designed this die to have the holes in the tree bring out the light of whatever color's behind it. I chose the Mango Melody because it's such a bright yellow. But I probably will go back over this with some other decorations, maybe some sequins. I actually have some here. I might even do it while you guys are watching on the video. But you see how those little yellow bits come through. It's also a time to, now some of these holes aren't meant to poke out. Oh, you know what, I don't have, I think I do have my poker one piece here somewhere, but I won't take, oh, no. I'm not gonna take the time to look for it right now, but you do wanna make, not all of these, there's little indentations and not all of them are meant to come out, but some of them are, like, this bit here I'm realizing should come out. So I'm going to be getting my, here, let me show you with my scissors. Because I can get my poker and do this later. But I failed to get all these little pieces out here. Do you see that? And it does make a really nice decoration all the way across the tree. I can even do this once I've glued it onto my card. So I'm just going to show you that. And I'll glue it on, and then I'll finish getting all those little holes out off screen so you guys don't have to take the time to watch me do that. Okay, so we're gonna glue this on. Now that all my children, I'm about to become an empty nester. Actually, it's like 7, 8, 9 more days, and my youngest one will really be heading off, going back to my roots up there in New England. And I will, what was I going to say about all my time I had or something? I don't know. Okay. Oh, decorating the tree. I was wondering who's going to decorate my tree this year because I really liked it when the kids were all around to do that. Oh, well, maybe one of my local children will have pity on me and come and decorate it for me. Okay, so I love cutting these swags up for different pieces. I think it was in project number 3, and maybe in the first project as well, where I take a piece of this, and you can imagine it underneath the candles, because there's candles that come in this set with a flame too. It's really, really nice. But anyway, I'm cutting it up now for a little bit of greenery over the window, and I may decide not to put the greenery over the window this time. You know, I always told you I make up my mind as I make the card. But I definitely use these 2 hooks on the side. So we'll start with that. So you see how this kind of bends and goes up. And so I'm going to use that here so that it looks like it's, you know, pieced right along that banister. And you can see that it fits so well going down, running down this banister. Now my one recommendation, is that what I would call it? My one tip here is that you don't want this to extend out past your card, because you still need it to fit in your envelope. So you want to make sure that the end of the swag is at the end of the card. It's okay if this one hangs out more than the staircase banister though, because it's going on out into the room and it will still fit into your envelope. So let's get those on. You can see once you have all the pieces cut up, I don't think it really takes that long to actually put the card together, and it does make a special card. There we go. And now this one. And so we'll have a bow that we can put on it where that meets, and I also have the Pearlized effects, so we can even add berries too. So I'm looking forward to that. You know, I just did it again where I wasn't mindful about whether or not I put glue on the other side of this, and I did. You want to be careful of that, because if you're coming off the banister, hard to get to like this, and you can always, you don't want glue here, because if I have glue on the other side of this and I close this, it's going to stick to my tree. See how it's sticking to my tree? So you don't want that. So avoid that. Make sure you're only putting glue where you want it on the banister. Now you can see I'm using my finger to get it off, and that works pretty well. But if you ever really have a mess, one of the best things to do is kind of get it without doing too much damage with your finger, and then applying either one of our embossing buddies, which you can find in our annual catalog, or even just a little bit of cornstarch or powder. Okay, so now I'm going to take this other bow and we're going to put that right here on the banister. So we'll do that. And I really only put the glue in the very center. I don't know if you can see that, in the very center of that bow, because it works so well, and once we put it on there, it's gonna stay. I do have to poke those holes out afterwards though. I even find myself wondering if I should have put another bow here. You know, I have another one here. Let's see what I think of that. Is that too much to put another bow here? I can't have it sticking out, but I could put it there. I don't know, maybe in the comments you could tell me, do I want 3, one here, and one there? Do I want just the one, or do I want 2? And if so, where would I put them? I'd love to hear your comments, because keep in mind we still have one on this wreath in here as well. So I don't want to overload it, but give me your thoughts on that. I'd love to hear. Okay, so the card, is that done? I believe that's done. Other than me poking out the holes that are missing in here, that's our card done. I hope you like it, and I hope that you're not, oh, I know what else. No, there's two more things. Okay, so they are, I can put this up here, and I can still see the snow underneath, so I'm going to go ahead and do that. And of course, if these were flat cards, and all of these things you could make, like just a card that looks like that, you know, with the window on the front and the tree to the side, then you could put the tree up on dimensionals, and you could put the swag up on dimensionals, and that would all look really nice. So see, I've taken that middle piece and I've put that in there, and then I did promise to show you, which I used in another project earlier already, but this is our Pearlized Enamel Effects Basics, and it comes in silver, red, and white. And I used it for berries on a previous card, and I'm gonna do the same thing now. The only thing is this does take a while to dry. So you have to do your cards in advance and then be able to set them aside. But it's really late here right now. In fact, you don't want to know how late it is. But I'm putting all these berries on. I love them. In fact, I'm going to add them to this original card too. So easy to use. And you know, by morning, I mean, it doesn't take that long to dry, and they'll definitely be dry by the morning. And this just adds that little bit more of the pop of red. I'm really, really liking this. So I'm going to have to do the other card as well. But you can see just how easy it is to get those on there. I'm going to wait till that dries, and then tomorrow I'm going to do that wreath in there. But that is nice. I like those berries. So go ahead and treat yourself to some of this Pearlized effects, because they are fun to use, and they really, I think, just make a nice difference, you know, just, well, I'm really liking it on this. Let's just put it that way. And seeing that red and green carry out. Oops, I said I was going to do this tomorrow, didn't I? Well, that was on the other card. See, I just can't stop. It's too nice. And then a little bit in here. I just hope you can have fun with that swag and the candles, and such a great bundle. All right, there we go. I believe that I really am finished now. Well, I still have to poke out the rest of those holes in this new one. But you can see it's all ready. It could stand up, and they can see the whole scene in there. And you can add more to it if you'd like. But I thank you for watching the video.